I'm Cathy. I work in the entertainment industry and ad sales. I've done that for about 30 years. I've been married for 35 years. I have a 25-year-old daughter, and I had sleeve gastrectomy surgery in January of 2012, so that's about 3.5 years ago. And I have lost and kept off 130 pounds. Weight has been an issue for me since my earliest memories. I was on diets literally since the time I was 5 years old. When I was little, it was kind of a solitary relationship with candy bars or the forbidden things because I was always on a diet, and my mother really was the enforcer of all of these diets. So I was at Weight Watchers from the time I was 8 years old. So of course I was the youngest person there, and my food was monitored at home. Sunday we would go to church and then have a family brunch afterwards. And everyone would have these lovely plates of scrambled eggs and bacon and pancakes, which was our Sunday tradition. And my plate was always a hard-boiled egg and half a grapefruit. I never had the food that anybody else was allowed to have because I was fat. But I was successful in many ways. So I was an athlete. You know, even though I was pudgy, I was the captain of the tennis team. I was a good student. So I had a lot of positive reinforcement in many areas of my life, and I was very social. I had lots and lots of friends. So there was just this one part of me that was wrong, that was bad. Doctors were so complicit in this craziness. I was ordered to take speed and the diuretic on a daily basis, and I hated it. I couldn't sleep, so I literally developed a sleeping problem because I could not sleep and my heart was racing. So I took to hiding the pills under my mattress. And then one day when my mom was changing the sheets, she found this stash of pills that I had been hit. So I walked off to the pediatrician again to get scolded and told that I had to take this medicine. And I will never forget the pediatrician saying, "Keep an encyclopedia by the side of your book, and when you are up in the middle of the night and you can't sleep, read the encyclopedia and you will be so bored you will go to sleep." Well, that was ridiculous and didn't work. My mother thought she was doing the right thing, but it's lucky I didn't have a heart attack. When it really started to be a bigger issue than that was after I had my daughter. Every extra second that I had that I wasn't at work, I wanted to be with my daughter. So I wasn't going to take that extra hour and go to the gym anymore or even go for a walk. These were bad choices that I made, but they were the choices because plenty of people have figured it out with many more responsibilities. So over the course of her growing up, I would say I gained like 10 pounds a year just from poor eating choices and lack of any kind of physical exercise, to the point where suddenly it was like 100 pounds overweight, and then 120 pounds overweight, and then 130 pounds overweight, and it was like, oh my goodness, this is a whole different level of pudginess than I ever knew growing up. I still had a senior level responsibility at my job, which required a huge amount of travel. And there wasn't a day that I woke up and didn't dread the day, because I would have to choose one of the black tents in my closet to put on. When you're 130 pounds overweight, you can't go to a normal store, so you're at the fat lady stores, as people call them. And I always felt that my weight preceded any other impression that people would have of me. And I think that's probably true. I would walk into a room for a meeting and I would notice what kind of chairs there were. And if they were folding chairs, I would worry that the chair was going to collapse. I was in New York at a meeting and they took us to the theater at night. And all I could think of was, oh my God, those theater seats are so little and I'm going to be spilling out of the sides of that seat. And the people on either side of me, my work colleagues, are going to be horribly uncomfortable. And this play is going to go on for 3 or 4 hours, and it's just going to be a nightmare. And it kind of was. Every trip for the week before, I would be hysterical about whether I was going to be able to get that seatbelt fastened. And was this the time when I was finally going to have to ask for the extender from the flight attendant? It wasn't until 4 years ago when I started working with a really good nutritionist, and I have been to nutritionists over the years too, that this notion of bad foods, good foods, was blown up in the first meeting I had with her. She said, tell me some of the things you like to cook, because I love to cook. I said, well, I make this fake potato salad. I know I use potatoes, and I know those are bad, but I use fake mayonnaise. And she's like, wait a second, potatoes are bad? And I said, yeah, anything white is bad. So she just started reworking the notion of food with me. So now I'm in a place where there's no bad food, and had I known that as a child, I could have had the pancakes at breakfast with everybody else. For years, my health had never been an issue. So within a period of 5 years, I had cholesterol reducing medication. I was on an antidepressant, which not for depression, but was supposed to have appetite suppressant qualities. I don't think it did. I was pre-diabetic. I was this close to having type 2 diabetes. On some scales, I would have been identified as diabetic. I had been given a prescription for high blood pressure. My knees were completely shot. I am bone on both knees, and the surgeon was recommending knee replacement surgery in both knees. I was virtually handicapped. I could only wear certain kinds of shoes, and I could barely walk. Probably the scariest thing of all is I have breast cancer in my family. My mother and 2 sisters had premenopausal breast cancer. I had the highest risk factor that you can have, which is obesity. And because I was a breast cancer risk, the first time I'd ever had an MRI, I was terrified. They have to run an IV, and because I was so big, anytime I ever had to have any procedure with an IV, I have rolling veins, but also I had so much fat. It was an absolute nightmare to get an IV started. They would end up having to call in the special surgical VIP team just to start an IV. It was a process that took an hour. I'd always end up in tears. It was horrible. We roll into the MRI room, and they can't get me in the tube because I'm literally too big for the MRI tube. And I think at that point I was like, really? What's next? What is next? This is ridiculous. This is no way to live, and it is not going to get better. This is not going to end well.